Welcome everyone to the Purpose Institute and to our new episode where we will explore human design in order to come up with some hints about the human purpose. And today we're going to talk about a very interesting and really tough topic, which is death. This topic is so huge that we will probably need hours and hours of discussion and monologues and analyses. We're not going to do it here, but I wanted to give you some ideas and maybe starting point for our future discussions, and we will definitely build on it. But let's start with some basics. So the biggest question here would be, do we have to die as designed species? Why would a designer build in or programmed a death into his or her design? And as a designer, I have to tell you that when you design a machine, you always think about so-called life cycle. It's an engineering term that describes the entire lifespan of the design of the product. And the designer needs to envision certain phases of this life cycle, how it's going to be manufactured, how it's going to be delivered, how it's going to be used, how it's going to be disposed of. So the whole thing is called a life cycle. So when you design anything, any machine, any device, any product, this life cycle is always there. And I cannot believe that death, being such a huge event in our lives, was put there randomly. There's probably some intent there. And I'm a little bit confused whether this intent is permanent or it's just temporary. Definitely death creates a lot of emotional reactions in humans, and it's unlike any other event. Maybe the birth of a child would be comparable, but I think there are absolutely different flavors. So I think it's fundamental. And on the side note, I wonder whether people like Brian Johnson, you probably know him. This is the gentleman who is trying to develop the protocol that will allow him to live forever. I wonder whether he thinks about this feature of human design as being crucial to our identity. Is it really just a matter of a medical protocol, or it's much deeper than that, and eliminating death will have far-reaching consequences to our lives? So, Brian, let me know if you're watching this video. Let me know what you think about it. Is it just a medical improvement, or we will touch very deep and dark areas of human existence? What is from the design perspective, it's very interesting that we have two elements to this game. We have death and we have birth, right? Having offspring. And it's interesting if you, as a designer, include death into your design, you have to automatically include birth. Without it, you will just have one generation, and the whole design goes to trash after just one lifespan. If your purpose takes longer than just one generation, you have to have offspring. What is very interesting, it doesn't go the other way around. So if you have offspring and you can procreate as a species, you don't have to have death. It would probably help if we're talking about resources, because resources can be restricted, and in that case you cannot grow the population infinitely. But if resources are not a problem, then you can imagine that you will have always growing a population, or death will be just accidental and not programmed. But if you have programmed death, then you have to have offsprings. So that's it. The situation is not symmetrical here, and which is, in my mind, it's very interesting. Now let's think about death on the individual level and on the population level. So individually, what I think is important is that whatever you gain as an individual will be lost with your death. The only way to preserve your experience and your knowledge is to share it with other people. And I'll talk about it later. So for us, I think individuals, the most important thing is that we cease to exist as a source of knowledge, opinion, convictions, and so on and so forth. Very interesting. This thing cannot last forever, right? So our internal experiences, knowledge, and convictions cannot last forever. So I think this is fundamental, and there are obvious things, which is, we just completely cease to exist as individuals after a certain period of time. So from the population perspective, biological perspective, what is important in this death and birth cycle, human life cycle, is that we create with every cycle completely perfect individuals. And regardless of parents' age, what we observe is that the kids are always biologically perfect, right? So it's a reset, biological reset, that happens with each generation. Also very interesting. So the decay, biological decay, is not repaired within a single individual, but it's rather reset. The mental part is being removed, and the biological part is being reborn, so to speak. And on Earth, this cycle, this biological cycle, is very common. Almost all species die. They have programmed in death. There are some exceptions, like immortal jellyfish or the hydra, and those animals can rebuild or reverse aging, and theoretically they can live forever. So they don't have this programmed in death, which is surprising because it seems like the designer had this option available to him and he didn't use it. So if you take a look at the death from the evolutionary biology perspective, you will see that biology explains it as a beneficial feature, a strategy. So this reset, the cycle of generations or a chain of generations, the sharing of genes between individuals with each offspring. We mix the gene pool. We kind of spread the successful genes in the population, and that way we become better. And there are certain parameters of human population that show that with each generation we're becoming better. Like, for example, IQ would be one metric that is measured, and it goes up with generations. At least there's research showing that trend. So definitely there's a very interesting mixing, averaging, spreading beneficial genes or features or traits within the population going on. Is it all about being successful as species or being successful as genes? I don't think this is the entire story. I think there's more to it. Another biological feature or advantage of having death programmed in death is that we can regulate the population level in a very easy way just by adjusting the birth rate. So if we have a constant death rate, the only parameter we have to change to adjust the size of the population would be the birth rate. And it's a very nice design. Just one parameter going up and down, and you can tweak the size of the population. And as I mentioned before, the constant need for offspring creates this constant mixing of genes, right? And this kind of averages the population and also spreads the successful genes and traits or features if we look at it from the design perspective. Also, death resets the damage in the population. So there's no way you can transfer damage accumulated by a single individual. Epigenetics maybe to a certain extent still do that, but a lot of damage is stopped with the death of a certain individual. And then we have new generation that is biologically perfect. Okay, so that would be the biological perspective, I think very important. So as biomachines, we have a lot of benefits from the fact that we die and we create offspring. And this cycle repeats itself. It's a very beneficial strategy. Not the only one, as I mentioned. There are other strategies, but the designer wanted us to have this particular one, which is very interesting. Okay, civilization level perspective. As I mentioned before, the death eliminates completely your memories and your experience from the equation. So when you die, whatever is left is only what other people remember. So if you want your ideas, your convictions, your experience, your knowledge to stay within this with a certain group or civilization, you have to actively communicate those things, and you have to convince people that what you think and what you've learned is correct. That's interesting, right? So individuals in this model are not really determining the knowledge and the consciousness of the civilization. They are just single sources that inject ideas into the population, but the population, the group, decides what survives and what dies. I think this is really important from the spiritual perspective, that nobody can go into your head and you don't have any other way of spreading your ideas than just exposing those ideas, showing those ideas to others, and letting them to choose to say, I like them or I don't like them. Okay. Let's talk about some numbers, because I think as an engineer, I'm always interested in technicalities. So death obviously links to lifespan. And right now, we think that we can observe individuals with a maximal lifespan possible. So if we analyze people, the longest lived people, we will discover that they live maximum around 120 years. So the longest lived man so far was Jiroemon Kimura of Japan, who lived 116 years. And we had also a lady, Jeanne Galme, a French lady, who lived 122 years, 122 and a half years, I should say, almost. Some scientists and researchers think that that's the top, that's the longest people can live. However, some models also theorize that the lifespan is probably between 120 and 150. And scientists think that with some interventions, we can even break this barrier and we can live longer than that. If you ask me, I would say from the generational perspective, it doesn't really matter whether we live 80 years or 120 or 200 years. It's still the same ball game, and it will probably not disturb much. But if we can make ourselves immortal, then I think we will change completely the design, and that would be monumental. All right, so we have the common agreement is that probably 120 is the longest we can live, but who knows? Maybe with some interventions we can break this barrier. We have also two individuals, one in the United Kingdom that is still alive and was born in 1909. And we have one individual in Brazil who was born in 1912 and still alive. So we'll see how those individuals perform, so to speak. But most records show that the 120 would be slightly below 120 would be the limit for most of us, if not all of us. What is really interesting, if you know Bible, you would know that Moses lived to be 129, and this is absolutely stunning that the biblical record kind of overlaps with what we know right now. And I would say 30-40 years ago, we were not that certain that 120 or 150 is a realistic lifespan, and people looked at the Bible with a lot of skepticism, and it was probably taken as a legend rather than a fact. And today I would say, well, it's pretty close to what we know at that point. I'm not saying it won't change, but it is interesting that real numbers and the biblical numbers, at least in terms of Moses, they are very close to each other. However, there are 3 individuals in the book of Genesis that lived almost to 1,000 years, and I don't know what to make of it. But definitely we have, for example, Adam lived 930 years. So we don't really know whether there is some of kind of a truth to it, or it's just a different way of counting years, or maybe just some inaccurate account. Okay, so what is the meaning of death if we think about the purpose? If we summarize everything and we have to come up with a couple of sentences summarizing this feature, design feature. I would say that what is absolutely undeniable is that the purpose, the designer built in death, and probably it serves the purpose. Otherwise, there are definitely other possibilities, and it's easy to imagine a biological machine that does not have built-in death, but we have it. So probably there's a reason for it. We can speculate about the reason, but in my opinion, the fact that we have it from the get-go means a lot. Now, one can argue that maybe eliminating death is part of our pathway towards the purpose. Hard to tell, but there's also a danger that when we violate the cycle of generations, we will disrupt the pathway towards the final goal. So I really have a mixed reaction to efforts I described before. So Brian Johnson, let me know if you have any thoughts about that. For now, thank you very much, and see you soon. Bye-bye.